So, very good evening, dear friends. And today's session, we are going to complete almost the third unit, that is the share capital and loan capital. Share capital I have done elaborately, and I have given you all the instructions thereon. Now it is loan capital. Loan capital means a company can get the loan capital by way of short-term loans, long-term loans from the banks and financial institutions. It can go to public, a public limited company can go to public and then offer debentures. And then even private limited company, but cannot go to public. And then through debentures means long-term loans. And then they can also go for bonds. They can also go for public issue, the public invitation to fixed deposits with regard to the private limited companies. So with all this background, what I tell you is that in a loan capital collection, the companies can have multiple options. In the examination point of view, you can definitely get a question on debentures normally because it has got sufficient material to be written for answering a 20-mark question. So my dear friends, debentures is covered under section 71 of the Companies Act. Earlier, multiple sections were there under 1956 Act, but now it is only one section, that is section 71, which deals with several, subsections and contains several, permutations and combinations. So, thoroughly, the section 71 as amended up to date, you have to update yourself. This is the most important aspect. Then apart from that, my dear friends, the definition, section 2, subsection 30, section 2, subsection 30 of the Companies Act contains the definition of debentures. It simply says debenture includes debenture stock, bonds, and any other instrument of a company evidencing a debt, whether constituting a charge on the company's assets or not. Please see, that means without the nomenclature of debenture also, any debt is created for the loan capital of the company that could be treated as a debenture. So debenture is a debt. And it says it includes debenture stock, bonds, and any other instrument of the company evidencing a debt. So, how the debentures are issued? In fact, normally they are issued in 100 rupees face value and they are to be contributed in full, unlike the share capital where issued capital, subscribed and all such things come into picture. And then debentures are transferable. Normally, the debentures have a life over about 7 years or so, then they are refundable. Debentures could be taken as convertible into shares also. Or else, the debentures are basically refundable. It is a debt of the company. The debenture holders are shareholders? No. The debenture holders are creditors of the company. They can never be shareholders unless it is a convertible debenture and the time expires and then debentures are converted into share capital. This is the combination you are supposed to understand with regard to the debentures. There is no specific definition of debentures like an agreement if enforceable by law is a contract. Indian Contract Act says. Such kind of definition you don't find. But any debt could be called as a debenture. This is how the Companies Act says so, but the definition is ambiguous. So, apart from section 2, subsection 30, I would like to give you some important decisions and then the judgments thereon. In fact, there is a beautiful book, Words and Phrases Framed by Supreme Court. I have earlier also told you about this book, if you remember. And in this particular book, it is edited by a learned Supreme Court judge. And then this particular book costs you about 1,000 rupees or so. Several definitions are given with reference to judgments of Supreme Court. So, you find debenture, for example, the reference of Supreme Court on debentures is found in this particular book. So, you have to better take this particular book and then you keep it in your library. It is of great help to you because every term is having the background of decision of a Supreme Court. Then friends, the word debenture is concerned, as I told you, we have to see the various judgments. One beautiful judgment, a definition given in a judgment by Justice Chitty, Chitty, in the case of Levy versus Levy versus Abercoris, Slate and Slab Company, Levy versus Abercoris, 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 Slate and Slab Company, 1887, and then Chancery Division, and then Law Reports, LR 37, Chancery Division, CHD 260, 264. So friends, this is a very important, judgment. And then you find another references of 58, 1887, 58, LT, and then 218, law times. So friends, here the definition is this. Debenture means a document. Debenture means a document which either creates a debt or acknowledges it. And any document which fulfills either of these conditions is a debenture. It's a document which either creates a debt or acknowledges it. A debt or acknowledgement of debt. And any document which fulfills either of these conditions is a debenture. So friends, here this particular definition has been made very clear. Then there is one more definition given by Topham. Topham has written a book on company law. And this is taken extract from the 12th edition. And then the judgment reference is Knightsbridge, Knightsbridge, Knightsbridge Estates Limited versus Byrne. Knightsbridge Estates Limited versus Byrne, 1940. AC, that means appeal cases 613. One more reference, 1940, 2 volume, All England Reports, 401. And then, where all the important definitions have been considered here, and there is one more reference that Vyas Justice in Madan Lal Fakir Chand Dudediya versus Changdio Sugar Mills Limited. All India Reporter, 1958, Bombay High Court, 491, then 496. Now, what is the definition here with Topham's company law? These are all the subsidiary references with Topham. What Topham has said, debenture is a document. Debenture is a document given by a company as evidence of a debt to the holder, usually arising out of a loan and most commonly secured by a charge. Please see, debenture is a document given by a company as evidence of a debt to the holder, usually arising out of a loan and most commonly secured by a charge. What does it mean? The debentures are secured by a charge against the properties. There could be a fixed charge or a floating charge, which is permissible under the Companies Act 2013. And that means it could be machinery, it could be factory building, it could be stock, that is floating charge. Machinery, fixed charge, where in the event the debentures are not refunded, the amount of interest is not paid, then the properties kept on charge would be sold in the market after appropriate foreclosure. That is the advantage of these particular charges. So the debentures could be secured by charge. So ultimately the essence is put into the Companies Act 2013. Earlier 1956 Act, now 2013 Act. Then friends, as a matter of fact, in fact further I tell you, this particular term does not have any precise legal meaning, and the term as used in the modern commercial parlance is of extremely elastic character. Like, for example, if you please see, there are few references I give again why I am telling elastic character. That one is Chief Controlling Revenue Authority. Chief Controlling Revenue Authority versus State Bank of Mysore. All India Reporter, 1988, Karnataka High Court, page 1. And followed by a detailed discussion about the debentures has been given. The nature of debenture has been given, and it is to be found in Narendra Kumar Maheshwari versus Narendra Kumar Maheshwari versus Union of India, 1990, Supreme Court. In fact, it is supplemental, 1990, supplemental SCC, Supreme Court cases, page 440. Equivalent, 1989, volume 2, Company Law Journal, page 95. So in this, but basically, what is the nature of a debenture? It is a movable property. I told you yesterday. Shares and debentures are movable properties. So this is also a movable property. And then friends, even though there is no definition which can help in all cases to know whether a particular document issued by company is debenture or not, then in fact it is Chitty Justice Chitty in Levy versus Abercorris Slate and Slab Company, I have already referred to, 1887, 37 Chancery Division 260 and 264. I have already told you about it. And then this was cited in Lakshman Bharmaji versus Emperor, ILR 1945, Bombay 863. Equivalent, All India Reporter, 1946. All India Reporter, 1946. Bombay High Court, page 18. Lakshman Bharmaji versus Emperor. Where, take down carefully, the pronouncement is that the court says we must look at the substance of the instrument itself, and without the assistance of any precise legal definition, form the best opinion we can whether the instrument is or is not a debenture. It all depends upon the circumstances of the case. So the Bombay High Court has acted upon the principle in deciding Lakshman Bharmaji versus Emperor. That is, the contract to subscribe for the company's debenture may be specifically an enforceable contract. I told you Indian Contract Act will come into picture. I told you Sale of Goods Act will come. I told you Transfer of Property Act also can come. And then Companies Act. All the legislations you have to study thereon with regard to the, apart from that, it's a public limited company, public issue, then the SEBI, SECRA, depositories, all these legislations will come into picture. So you can't study the Companies Act in isolation. You have to take the combinations, depends upon the subject. You are talking of directors, meetings, compliances, then it is Companies Act. You are talking of shares and debentures, then it is public limited companies, then the Depositories Act, the SECRA, the SEBI, and then Indian Contract Act, the Sale of Goods Act, and then the Transfer of Property Act also. These are all the provisions which are supposed to be taken into consideration. This is how you have to expand your knowledge and then make out a comprehensive study to understand the relevant topics thereon under the Companies Act. Like, for example, the relationship subsisting between the shareholders among themselves and the company and the shareholders. I told you this is contractual. I have already explained that to you. It is contractual. In the same way, here also it comes with regard to this particular contractual aspect. And then, here in this particular case, what happened? The main business of a private company was to sell what were called patron bonds. I am giving an example also. Patron bonds. And to invest the money realized by the sale of those bonds. The form of the bond bore a serial number and it acknowledged a debt. It was one of a series. It bore the company's seal. It provided for the payment of interest by determining the lucky numbers. Now, the court of law in this particular case observed the main features which, in our opinion, tend conclusively to show that they are all patron bonds which are to be taken as debentures. Debentures. And then they are the acknowledgement of debt. Whether it is debt, acknowledgement of debt, it is a debenture. And then the promise to return it. The fact that they form a series bearing consecutive numbers. So with the circumstantial evidence, with the particular permutations and combinations, ultimately you have to come to a conclusion whether that particular subject issued is not even though called as debenture, whether it will be treated as a debenture. And then if it is to be treated as a debenture, you find these particular features. If it is a debenture, then it is refundable, it is a debt, and the debenture holder is a creditor of the company. Now I hope now you understand the permutations and combinations of this particular subject matter. Then, what are the usual features of debentures? It appears from this particular discussion for us that the usual features are, in the first place, a debenture is usually in the form of a certificate issued under the seal of the company, most important. Secondly, the certificate is generally an acknowledgement of indebtedness. So, this was put into the words of M.R. Pollock, that is the Lemon versus L-E-M-O-N, Lemon versus Austin, Lemon versus Austin, Frears, F-R-E-A-R-S, Frears, Investment Trust Limited, Lemon versus Austin, Frears, Investment Trust Limited, 1926, and then Chancery Division 1, 1926, Chancery Division, page 1. This is the reference, my dear friends. So, in this particular case, the Pollock says, whatever be the characteristics which you would expect to find in debentures, the root meaning of the debentures is indebtedness. What is it? Indebtedness. Indebtedness. That it does record an indebtedness. It does record an indebtedness. And then the earlier one, it is in the form of a certificate. This was taken into account by the Queen's Bench decision. That is British India Steam Navigation Company versus IRC. British India Steam Navigation Company versus IRC. 1881, 7, QBD, Queen's Bench Decision, 165. Here it was held that a seal is even not necessary, and the debenture certificate, which was merely signed by two directors and did not bear the company's seal, was held to be valid. Today, common seal is gone. Today's enactment, there is no common seal. 1956 Act, it was compulsory. Now it is not compulsory. So, even as back as 1887, it was held that common seal is not necessary. However, what is most important is it should show that there is a certificate and then it should acknowledge the debt. The other judgments say, in Pollock words, that it does record an indebtedness, and if it is proved that there is indebtedness, then that would be considered as the particular debt, and the debenture is a debt of the company, and the debenture holder is a shareholder of the company. So friends, a debenture is further taken as usually provides for the payment of a specified principal amount. It could be a percentage, and however, it may not be essential that the Companies Act is changed. A company may issue perpetual debentures with no undertaking to pay also. Like Section 120 of the Companies Act 1956, for example, you can go back for historical reference. It provided that debentures are not invalid simply because they are made irredeemable They are made irredeemable or redeemable only on the happening of a contingency. Okay. However remote or on the expiration of a period however long. This is another important judgment, my dear friends. Knightbridge Estates Limited versus Byrne, Byrne, 1940 appeal cases, 1940 appeal cases, page 613. And then, friends, then another important aspect is that a debenture usually provides for payment of interest until the principal sum is paid back, but this again may not be essential, that the interest may be made payable subject to contingencies of, in fact, uncertain nature. So this is Lemon versus Austin Friars Investment Trust Limited. Lemon versus Austin Friars Investment Trust Limited. So this is two features. The third feature is that it's a first feature I already told you that it is basically that in the form of a certificate. Then it is generally an acknowledgement of indebtedness, and thirdly, it's a rule of one of series at a single debenture is not uncommon. There may be a single debenture issued to one man, and then no problem. And lastly, in fact, a debenture, generally creates a charge on the undertaking of the company or on some class of its assets or on some parts of its profits. Again, it is again not essential. A debenture which creates no such a charge also is perfectly valid. In fact, section 7112, if you see, it provides, that is 2013 Act, provides that a contract with a company to take up and pay for any debentures in the company may be enforced by a decree for specific performance. This provision in the company, in fact, is necessary because otherwise money lending transactions are not so enforceable. This is what it says. Seva Singh versus Mukha Singh, ILR 1936-17, Lahore 270. Equivalent AIR 1936, Lahore 727. So friends, with all this background, what I tell you is, number one, debenture is a debt. It's a document containing the debt of the company. A debenture holder is a shareholder of the company. This is the most important aspect you are supposed to understand. The second thing is debentures are long-term loans. And either the debentures could be converted into shares or they could be converted into shares or they could be refundable. Shares are not refundable. Debentures are refundable. This is the most important aspect. Then another important thing, debentures, fixed deposits, bonds, they are all loans. Loans have to be repaid. And interest agreed is a contract, it has to be paid off. This is also a very important aspect. Now the background of the cases, I told you English cases as well as English cases and the Supreme Court judgments. Like the one I have told you very clearly with regard to the Supreme Court, that is Narendra Kumar Maheshwari versus Union of India, 1990 Supplement F.C.S 440, 1989 otherwise 2 Company Law Journal 95. This particular judgment also tells consolidatedly that what is the nature of a debenture and then what are the characteristics thereon. So now with this particular background, my dear friends, we have to study the provisions of the Companies Act, which are very lengthy provisions. There are a number of subsections. Each section you have to understand and then explain. So with this background, whatever is stated in the statute under section 71 ultimately will be binding. If you find the particular provision under 71 is not clear on certain aspects, then the case law I gave you will stand good. If the statute is clear, then statute is ultimately clear in all respects. To that extent, this case law you need not worry. But this case law is necessary to explain what is a debenture, a 20 marks question. You had to first give the introduction, taking debentures as long-term loans and repayable, and debenture holders are the creditors of the company. Then you have to explain as to the characteristics of debentures, the features, and then you have to come to the reference. First reference is section 2 subsection 30, and the second reference is section 71, and then all the subsections thereon. With regard to debentures, there is a provision under the section 71 that a debenture trust also must be established. Debenture trust deed has to be executed, and the trustees are responsible for ensuring repayment as well as payment of interest. So these are all the things you are supposed to take care of while dealing with debentures. In the examination point of view, you have to give the background, you have to give the case law, explain the characteristics, and finally you have to give the provisions of law. And then first you have to open with the definition section 230, then go for judicial interpretation because the provision is not clear, totally clear. Then after interpretation, you have to come to the statute, then you have to explain the provisions under section 71 of the Act. So in today's session, I have completed the conceptual aspect, the characteristics, and then the judicial decisions. In our next session, when we meet again, I will deal with the provisions of debentures under section 71 of the Act in detail, and I will explain. Both you have to combine together to write a good answer in the examination. So thank you, my dear friends, and then we will meet again. Good night. Bye-bye.